G'day folks, and welcome to Gourmet Shed. This week we're looking at fiddle yard cassettes, something like this. This is obviously homemade, and it's made from aluminium angle and aluminium flat bar, and we're going to have a bit of a look at how it's done. The reason for this is that it would be really good to make up your own cassettes if you've got an end-to-end system that you're running, and this is really quite a simple way of putting a cassette system in. However, it does need you to be quite precise in the way that you build it, but there are ways around that. The cassettes are made using 30 by 30 by 1.5 millimeter angle, aluminium angle. In my case, I've fitted the aluminium angle to 18 millimeter marine ply. You don't have to use marine ply, but I would suggest you use ply because it's very stable and is less prone to warping and bending than particle board or MDF. So, and especially once the angle is screwed down to the ply, you finish up with quite a stable platform. The angle is screwed down to the ply, and the screws have been countersunk into the aluminium to give a flush surface here. I used a homemade gauge to separate the pieces of angle. However, you could use a track gauge, but it's critical that you get the gauge correct all the way along. And the way this is fairly easily achieved is to first of all fit one piece of angle to one side and make sure it's flush with the edge, and this is assuming of course that you've cut your timber to the correct dimensions. Fit one side accurately, and the way to do it accurately is with the use of quick clamps or G clamps or whatever you may have. Clamp the angle down at both ends and make sure it's absolutely flush, and then screw it down while it's clamped, and release the clamps after it's screwed down. Now when you get to do the other side, this is where you need to first of all clamp the piece down and use a track gauge to check all the way along and make adjustments if necessary, but get it all set correctly to gauge and clamp down, and then screw it down, and it'll be dead right. Now I've made aluminium handles to go on mine. You don't have to do that. You could make timber handles or whatever you come up with, but you do need a way of lifting it and lifting it safely and securely. So the design of this sort of thing is optional. Another thing you need is end stops, and I've simply drilled a hole into my system here, and I've used a shelf support, which is this sort of system you get in modular furniture, and I've put a screw through it, and I've used a piece of plastic angle which has been modified. I've done a cutout there, as you can see, and all that happens is that will pop into the end, and you know, it floats around a little bit, but nothing's going to run out the end. The loco will be held securely in there and can't slide out. The last thing you want to do is pick the thing up and it's on a bit of an angle and the loco slides out the end. Now you're probably thinking, well, okay, that's good, Gourmet, that's all terrific, but how do you wire it up? How do you connect it to your layout? Well, some folks use bulldog clips. They'll have a wire soldered to the track that feeds into this cassette, and they'll have a wire with a clip on the end, a bulldog clip or an alligator clip, or they'll have one for each rail, and then you simply clip onto that, onto the angle here, and that will carry the current through. But I've used a method I pinched off the internet, which involves making up some aluminium prongs, I guess, for lack of a better description, so that this can simply slide into that and make the electrical connection. So I'll show you that. Now what I've done is I've used some of the same 30mm by 30mm angle, and I've cut a couple of slots in it so that I can adjust its movement backwards and forwards, and I've got a couple of 10mm by 3mm pieces of flat bar, and just put a bevel on the end of them, and I've connected them either side of the angle with bolts and nuts, etc. And I've also put a brass washer on there with a bit of wire soldered to it, and the other end obviously goes down to the rail, and I've done the same on the other side here. Now these two prongs have to be lined up to the exact same width as the cassette so that it can slide in there. And I'll just push one along, and you can see that it just pushes in. And because the angle in the middle of the two prongs is exactly the same as this angle, they're actually a very snug fit over the end of the cassette. So there's your electrical connection. Now if you put this together and find that these aren't actually snug, they should be, you can just give it a light squeeze with a pair of pliers and that'll tighten them up. It's a very simple system. Now I've run in a piece of standard track here, and all the height variations have been worked out beforehand. It's just a matter of, because the track is in effect coming in as the last piece of the puzzle, you can build that up to suit the height of your cassette, because the height of the track, if you include the sleeper and the rail, will sit higher than the angle normally, so you have to work out how to deal with the height variation. But once you've got that sorted out, it's fine. And because the angle is 1.5 millimeters thick, I haven't had any trouble running any, especially even older locos onto it, so it's no problem at all. Now this cassette will hold a full-size loco, but I've cut all my bases, the ply part. I cut them all in one go, so I've got a big supply of those, and I've got them in various lengths to suit different size trains. I mean, you can work that out yourself, but my longest one holds, I think it's a 4-coach train, which includes the loco, so that's 5 lengths of what you see there. So the final design is up to you, but really, as you can see, once you've got the angle and the gauge sorted out, the rest of it will just fall into place. And also, if you use the prong system, that's excellent, because it not only gives you the electrical contact, but it actually aligns the track at the same time. So it's a win-win situation there. You could use the clip method with the wire that I mentioned earlier, but I find the prong method is probably a cleaner way to do it. It's probably quicker too, once you're connecting things up. Yeah, so that's it. Now I did some videos when I first built this thing and put it together, and one of them was actually even without any track connected to it, but you can see that it works. So I'll get to it, and I'll chop those up a bit and whack them on the end here so you can just see how it works. Okay, well that's your lot for this week, and I'll see you next week. Cheers, gourmet. Now this is how it works. What you do is you bring a cassette to the fiddle yard, remove the end stop, then you slide the cassette up to the connectors, push it in firmly, make sure it's all nice and flat there, and then you can apply power to the locomotive. I don't have any track laid there yet, so we can't do much more than this, but you can see that it works quite well. Now to remove the cassette, I have a lever here that I made which will pull the cassette away from the connectors quite gently. They're quite a firm fit, so if you try and do it by hand, you've got this resistance in the connectors, and as they let go, it would be easy to sort of jerk the cassette. So I want a gentle sort of release. So you just push the lever, it just pulls it out of the connectors there. You put the end stop back in, and then you can remove the cassette, and then we'll reverse it. Put the lever back in place, remove the end stop, then push the cassette into place, and the loco can leave the yard in the opposite direction. And also you can't run out the end of the cassette because the end stop is in. So there you go. It's quite an easy thing to do. Very easy to park it in there. We'll just take it back out again. No issues where it's connecting to the standard track.